comes to relationship building and community policing and officers who know the people that they're working with, whether it's through like the Police Athletic League that works with youth or the Westside Community Action Center, have you all worked with officers or seen a deeper impact when officers are embedded in a part of the community in a deeper way?
That's one phase of community policing, but that's not the phase that. And the first thing when I mentioned this to the chief last week, I told him about that, and he said, "Well, we've got interaction officers, they call them, who play basketball and who do this, and they have kids over at the PAL Center and do this." But those officers are not out there to deal with the criminals. They're out there to make good relationships. That's good. But my concept. And it's not my concept. It was a concept that was a part of a think tank up at JFK School of Business at Harvard back in 1991. Some 60 of us. I was in one group of 30, and the chief then, Steve Bishop, was in the other group. And the concept was that you designate officers to do yes what you're talking about, playing basketball and this thing, but also dealing with the criminal element. That you don't assign people to it. You ask for volunteers to do this kind of work, and the hours are not 8 to 4 or 12 to 8 or anything like that. They go into, and I told the chief, they go into the area. So East Patrol in Kansas City, Missouri, is about I think 48 some square miles. I forget right off what it is, but when you have violence in a given area, East Patrol, there's 6 patrol divisions. East Patrol has about 40% of the homicides and about 50 to 60% of the violence that didn't turn out to be homicide. And it would make sense to concentrate your efforts in that area, but it's not being done because he says he lacks the number of police officers. And then what will happen is that north of the river, in 2 counties, which is still Kansas City, complaining we don't ever see a police car. And so then you give in to deploy police officers there, but the violent crime is in that area of East Patrol. So you have to, the deployment and the tactics have to be different. And I said that to the chief. And but he was calling me about troops were coming in and what they had asked for the federal government to do. And there were people here from the various federal agencies, and they didn't even know when they got here. So, but that's my take on that whole thing of where the police are and where they ought to be.
I would add to that last year, it was like it's been almost 2 years now. I did a tour of Midwest cities that had high rates of crime and violence that have reduced them quite significantly. And one of the cities that we went to was up in Omaha. And the police chief there, who I think he had been on the force nearly 30 years and had been chief for about 7 or 8 years, we talked a lot about sort of focused deterrence. Which is a process by which you focus your efforts on some of the, those who are more likely to commit crimes or at least be impacted by them. But one of the distinctions that he made in terms of utilizing his law enforcement officers was understanding in terms of where the types of crimes were happening, and then forming small task force, to sort of be in those target areas. So if, for example, if burglaries was an issue in one area, then he would assemble a burglary unit to go and sort of infiltrate that community. But it began with developing relationships with the community, for which the community then shared that information in terms of where these individuals were coming from, where the stolen goods were being sold, who was doing most of the stealing, all of those kinds of things, and working that. And so it wasn't about just flooding an area, with an overwhelming number of police officers. It was more of a smaller tactical approach to a problem. And I think that that is really what's needed here in Kansas City. When you look at, the concentration of violence and homicides are in a small portion of the Kansas City community. And so it's not rocket science when you talk about how do you then form the various task force to then go in and infiltrate those areas and begin to develop relationships, not, ultimately for the purposes of shutting down the criminal activity, but a lot of that activity, from what I understand, how they did it in Omaha, was really based on relationship building first. And when they established that, and in fact, what they also did was establish a witness protection plan program as well. And so when folks came forward, not only did they have a nice reward fund for those individuals, but they also were able to protect them when they came forward and shared information that could be risky as well. And so they build that trust in that way. And so I think that, I'm glad to hear, the calls being answered as it relates to a victim witness protection fund. I know the governor of Missouri, Governor Parsons, just had a special session yesterday on it. It's something that Ad hoc has been harping on for a few years now. And so I'm glad to see that it's happening. But it can't be absent without partnerships with the community.